Welcome to a BackstageMusician.com podcast.
With me on the phone, I have John O'Hurley. John, how are you today?
Great. Nice to talk to you.
Great. Thanks again for coming by here. As you all know, you probably know John from Seinfeld, one of my favorite characters on the show, actually, J. Peterman. Also has wrote a few books, a few records, currently starring in Monty Python's Spam-A-Lot. And you're also the host of Family Feud.
Yeah, I have kind of a full plate right now.
Yeah, you got a lot going on.
It's tougher to hit a moving target.
So let me ask you, going back to the Seinfeld days, we'll kind of start there. Do you kind of have a favorite moment while you were working on the show?
Well, my favorite part of the show was sitting behind my desk. It's as silly as that, but I never even used. I had a dressing room on the set of Seinfeld, but I never used it. I used the J. Peterman office as my office. If you went into the drawers, I had all of my personal stuff in there. All of the cadenza behind me had some stuff in there, and I just treated it as my basically as my room.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's funny, it was just so comfortable, and it felt so comfortable for me. All I would do is just kind of tip my chair back, put my feet up on the desk, and read a script or do anything else I had to do. But that was my office, and that's the way I treated it.
And I got to be honest, and that probably helped you get into the character a little bit as well, just being in the setting and so forth. I would assume.
The character really was kind of, I had never heard of J. Peterman before I'd started Seinfeld. They handed me the catalog the first day that I was there, and they said, we just want him to sound the way the catalog is written. And I scratched my head, and I started looking through the catalog, and lo and behold, it's the most unusual catalog you've ever seen. In fact, if you go to jpeterman.com, you'll see the actual catalog that we parodied on Seinfeld. It's still alive. And oddly enough, the PS to that whole story is that in 1999, a year after Seinfeld ended, I bought the J. Peterman Company, so I own it with the real J. Peterman now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
It's still there, still alive and kicking, and as I say, it's the most unusual catalog you will ever see. Huh. It is these long Hemingway-style adventure stories about the products that are all done in pastel drawings.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
all one-of-a-kind style merchandise, yeah.
And it really went along with the character, because, the character was pretty...
He was out there. He was kind of as a parody, he was really kind of a legend in his own mind.
And if I do say so myself, it was brilliantly done. I absolutely love that character.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, but I have to credit the writers for that as well. It was brilliantly written. I still look back on some of those, the Peterman monologues as some of the best writing that I've ever had a chance to deliver.
Do you have a favorite episode?
I go back to one of the final episodes that we shot, which was the wedding cake episode, which is a very popular one.
Yeah.
Where Elaine stole my priceless piece of World War II antique wedding cake from the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, and wolfed it down over several tries, and then tried to replace it with a $2 slice of Entenmann's.
Yeah, I remember.
I thought into the whole episode, because that was the Frogger machine,
yeah,
where George had the high score that was in danger of being lost forever unless he was able to move it across the street. I just thought the whole episode contained some of the best writing and the best the execution by the production team.
I'll agree to that. Actually, I just watched that one a few days ago. It was on TV. So
yeah, I just think it just had so many great surprises in it, and I think the execution of the Frogger machine across the street was one of the funnier things I've ever seen.
So moving forward a little bit, let's say if you weren't an entertainer of any kind, because let's face it, you're kind of a jack of all trades, what do you think you would have ended up being?
I would have been the only straight interior designer in Los Angeles. I love architecture, and I love design.
Really?
It's just something. In fact, I have a place in Vermont that I'm redoing right now, a place that we bought about a year ago, and it's kind of the focus of my attention right now is to kind of put this place together.
And how do you do all that between everything else that you have going on?
It's really difficult. I got to tell you, I have a wonderful assistant, and I have a great staff of press people and agents and stuff like that, and they help me out quite a bit. But in addition to that, I have 4 businesses that I keep running as well. So it's I'm kind of busy, but it's all good stuff, and it's stuff I do by choice, not by assignment. So I just have a complicated life because I choose to have one.
Wow. So when you're doing filming or when you're working with your music, which I want to talk more about in a moment, day to day, I guess, what inspires you?
Well, yeah, I live by one premise, and I speak about this a lot to corporations, but the premise I've lived my life by is that you have two choices in life. You can have an ordinary life, or you can have an extraordinary life.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make the choice, and you know, people end up with ordinary lives. They don't choose them.
Mm-hmm.
They choose extraordinary lives, and they live them. And so I just have made very active choices, and I always make a promise that whatever I imagine, I have to complete. So I let my imagination basically guide my life. Wow,
that's great advice. Actually, I hope more people kind of pick up on that. I like that a lot.
Well, it is because, you know, I mean, you've met people, and so have I. I mean, there's nothing more disappointing in life to hear about the things that people tried to do or thought about doing but never got done. You know, so many great ideas have been dropped at the 5-yard line.
Yeah.
And it's just disappointing because, you know, we're here to complete things, and that's all there is. And if you don't choose to complete them, then you end up with what I call an ordinary life. You know, the life filled with regrets.
Yeah, it's the carpe diem premise.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's carpe diem, which is make the carp die. Did I translate that properly? Maybe I missed it. Kill the carp. That's what it is. Kill all carp.
Yes, and if you Wikipedia that later, everyone will see that that's the actual meaning of that. So, okay, you do talk about how you like to, you know, interior design and things like that, but let me ask you, household chores, which one do you hate the most? You know, it changes. This is kind of I'm a work in progress of things that I hate. Right now, it's would you take the trash out, and it's because of the way we live here in Los Angeles. The trash is up on the street, and you have to go up several different levels and actually bring it up there. So the words "take out the trash" make my skin crawl. Fair enough. I could see that. Which one do you like the most?
I'm a big, you know, believe it or not, I'm a big fan of ironing. Now, that may sound very silly, but I always like it because it's like immediate gratification. You have a wrinkled shirt, you put some spray starch on it, you get a good iron going, you get a good groove going there, and all of a sudden, wow, you got a nice crisp shirt. So I don't mind ironing. I actually kind of find it kind of therapeutic.
I mentioned a minute ago about you know, the music that you're involved with, and I've listened to some of it, and I know you have another record coming out. Is that correct?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
when? Yeah, I started. You know, a lot of people don't know that I do this, and it's probably of all the things that I do the most private side of my life. I'm a writer as well, in addition to being an actor. But I do compose, and that's because, as I explain in the liner notes of my first album, there, I've had songs in my head ever since melodies in my head ever since I was 4 years old, and they just grow and grow and grow, and I don't know where they come from, but this is what I hear in my head. And so I am not a musician by trade, although I was trained as an opera. My minor was in opera, but I'm not a musician by trade, essentially, in terms of a performing musician. So I had to teach myself how to play piano. I taught myself guitar, and but again, I do it because I hear these melodies, and melodies are extremely important to me. And so the first album, it was entitled Peace of Our Minds, and it's a double album of all of the piano compositions that I've done over the last 25 years, combined with kind of a fusion of electronic cello and piano, which creates kind of an unusual sound. But I happen to find a very talented cellist by the name of Marston Smith, who goes by the name of just Marston, and together we did our first CD together, and the darn thing came out number 13 on Billboard in the classical alternative arena there, and surprising nobody more than me.
Well, I have to be honest. I mean, I listened to it, and the piano parts, especially being, you know, as one musician to another, they're extremely melodic, very conducive, very calming.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. For a musician to say that to me, that means a lot. That's an extraordinary compliment. Because I just hear these things, and you know, again, I go back to the idea of what I imagine I have to complete. When I did this, I said, you know, I have to get these out of my head and out into the world, because God forbid I keeled over, they would die with me. And I go, how sad that God puts these little things in your head and you don't use them. So
yeah.
That was the reason that I put the first CD together, and it was so successful and continues to be successful that I had another one in me of stuff that didn't that I kind of edited out of the first one that I've developed even more, and I actually like the second one, the new one that's coming out, which is entitled Secrets from the Lake, because I've had another 3-4 years to mull over and develop the compositions a little bit more.
Wow.
And I think it represents some of the best stuff I've ever done. So I'm really kind of excited about the release of this new CD.
I'm really looking forward to hearing that. I mean, if it holds a candle to the first one, that'll be really impressive because I really enjoyed the one.
That, but I think it's actually better, only because I think my sense of composition has matured. I learned an awful lot because I produce. I don't have a label. I am my label, which is what made the debut on Billboard all the more interesting because it was the highest rated CD that's ever been done, independently distributed and produced.
That's impressive.
And again, it surprised nobody more than me because I just put it out there because I wanted people to hear it. I had no idea that it would be picked up on Billboard, so it was the biggest surprise to me. But it was, but again, I do it because it's just I learned so much that first time, and I have been able to, with the help of some great people, mature through my sense of composition now.
Wow, I mean, it's real impressive. I'm looking forward to hearing it. When does that drop and become available?
It's as we speak. As you and I speak right now today, this CD is being pressed.
Really?
The Gold Masters over there right now, and we should have it out just after the holidays. I did not want to try and release it before the holidays because there's such a swirl of activity and competition there. This is, my stuff is really gentle. It's thematic, it's very emotional, it's very dramatic, but I don't like to try and compete with the other stuff that's out in the push, that's out for the holidays. I like the stuff to have a life and a breath of its own because I think it's more indicative of the style of music that I compose. Oh,
sure. I mean, I could tell it's very, I think the word I would use maybe would be vulnerable.
It is, very much so. In fact, I speak in the liners about, I think it's funny that I should call this Secrets from the Lake because on our property there in Vermont, we have there is a private lake up there, and that's the reason I purchased this property, was to have a body of water that was all mine, and so I talk about that in the liner notes on the album. And that's another point I make is that when I write my liner notes, I write them, and it's as intensely personal to me as the music that I compose is what I say about it and why I wrote it.
Wow.
But I do talk about the secrets in the lake, and then if you stand, the lake teaches you many things, and if you, more so than the ocean or the streams or the rivers, if you stand by a lake, you learn through a sense of stillness a lot of things about yourself.
Well, I'm learning a lot from you today, in the short time we've talked. I got to be honest with you. You spoke of the holidays. Any holiday plans?
Well, holidays going to be spent here, but Christmas will be spent in Los Angeles, and New Year's will be spent in Vermont there on the lake. All frozen. First time that we've been able to stay because we have just step one was done, and we've modified the carriage house that's on the property, and we'll be living there for vacations until we're able to redo the big house.
Wow. Well, John, I want to wish you a great holiday and a happy New Year. And again, I appreciate you coming by. Been a fan of yours for quite some time, and you're responsible for one of my favorite characters on Seinfeld, and you've done a lot since. And so I'm hoping people take the time. I'll put your website on the site and everything,
sure.
So they can.
If you just go very simply to johnohurley.com, you can listen to all the music and judge for yourself.
Yeah, and it's definitely worth people's time to kind of to take a good, fair listen to that music because it's so well composed. And obviously, if people you're performing in Vegas with Spamalot, correct?
We just actually finished in Vegas, and all next summer, actually in the spring, I'll start my national tour of Spamalot. And prior to that, I'll have the musical Chicago out in a few cities.
Wow.
Doing that, and then we'll start Spamalot again. And I'll be doing a West Coast tour up through the Pacific Northwest, including Alaska. And then this summer, I'll have it down in San Francisco.
Wow.
At the end of the summer, for 3 months, I'll be in Los Angeles with Spamalot.
Man. Well, I'm going to have to try to come out to that. But
it's a good one. It's the funniest show I've ever done. And I say that having been on Seinfeld.
Yeah, so that's saying a lot right there. definitely. John, thanks again for coming by, and we wish you the best of luck.
Great talking to you.